It had to happen sooner or later. A biopic about legendary rock star Elton John is currently in cinemas. Rocket Man is a portrayal of John's early life and breakthrough years, starring Welsh actor and singer Taron Egerton and directed by Dexter Fletcher, who also directed the last 2 weeks of the Freddie Mercury biopic Bohemian Rhapsody after director Bryan Singer was fired by the studio. Now, Elton John and his husband David Furnish, of course, had this film idea for a couple of decades, I think. Did you feel a lot of pressure by the time you came on board?
The legacy of an icon like Elton and his music sort of tends to clear the cobwebs away in terms of all other outside pressures. I think just that alone initially was fairly daunting.
I could hear the whole tune in my head. It was all there, I could see all the notes, and I just had to get it out.
It's a little bit funny.
Taron Egerton does a great job, especially given his singing. How did you approach the idea of trying to recreate the magic of Elton John's performances, especially in this heyday period?
You know, Taron, who plays Elton, sings everything in the film. He sings every moment that is Elton, he sings. There's an amazing level of commitment and truth to what Taron does.
Blue jean baby, yeah, lady.
We looked a lot at all that jazz, which is something in cabaret, and there's a movement and a kind of removed point of view that those films have as well. And also, if you look at Chorus Line, Dickie Attenborough is moving the camera around really beautifully on the movement of those dancers and singers.
And what the film does, I think, really nicely is it's often on that edge between reality and fantasy. And I think that's a sweet spot in the film that it achieves well.
Yeah, I found that when I read that first draft I read of Lee's script, that this fantasy element was certainly in there. So I kind of took that ball and ran with it. I mean, having my hand on Bohemian Rhapsody as well, which is somebody else's vision. I mean, that's really what I came in and I sort of, helped that get across the finish line. But what I realised about that is that film is a third person telling of it. And my film, Rocket Man, is Elton's telling of it. I was using his memory rather than a sort of dry, factual retelling of chronological events. Memory's an emotional connection to a time and a place, and that's why we use kind of poetic language in order to describe where we are. It felt like everyone floated in the room because it was this amazing moment.
That's that scene at the Troubadour, of course, where everyone literally floats off. So suddenly the film's in a poetic register there.
That's the aim of it, because Elton allows for that.
This is a film that is not afraid to sort of go there when it comes to the really traumatising moments in Elton's life, especially his relationships with his parents, but it's also a film that's very frank about his sexuality. Tell me about that approach. Does that come from Elton himself? I mean, did you ever have to sort of fight any resistance to some of those more raw moments?
No, is the short answer. I mean, Tantrums and Tiara is a moniker that he carries around. And in order to be able to show that, which I was very keen to do, there's this darker, sort of fairly well documented side of him that he carries that. He also has these abilities to have these poetic moments as well, so that we have a really fair, counterpoints to that. If people take issue with subjects that are dealt with in the film, or how they're dealt with, his sexuality, his drug, issues, then Elton's around. He can defend it. He can say, well, that's how it was. In fact, it was worse. It wasn't as bad. So it means that we can take more risks, because I can go to Elton and I say, there's this moment where he's got to grab the vodka and take the pills and swig it down. And Elton will say, yeah, I'm with that, because he understands he's there to be part of that decision making. And that, I think, is what gives us a bit more muscle to our arm in terms of, right, let's really push it to the boundaries. David Furnish was very clear about that. It's like, there's going to be a line, but let's go right up to it. And I was always, knocking at that door.
I like your lyrics.
Thank you.
What is it about Elton's songwriting that you like, do you think, that particularly, because his songwriting has been so successful, and with Bernie Taupin's lyrics, of course, what's the nucleus of what they do write these songs, do you think?
I think obviously that's something that's not easy to define.
I was surprised at just how many sad songs there were. I mean, he sings about it, of course, but
he does sing about it.
Everyone loves a sad song too.
I suppose they do. There's a melancholy element to them, and that lends itself to the drama very beautifully. equally, you know, Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting and Crocodile Rock, and I'm Still Standing are equally as joyous and as exciting. And I mean, a great tune hits us in the way that it does, and this is kind of like the magic of the musical for me, that's, you know, a great tune with a great cinematic experience can unify this audience. Yeah, it's super complicated, really. It's super complex. But I really enjoyed that, and I think that's what the film endeavours to do.